All right, so we have to talk field of view now. So I want to understand field of view. Now, I think most of us understand this distinction between narrow field of view means, at 100 yards, I see X amount of distance. So 2.9 degrees gives me like 19 point something feet at 100 yards versus something that's like 10 degrees gives me something like 50 feet at 100 yards. How do we make that field of view happen in a rifle scope?
Okay. Let's do this. Let's first redefine magnification, because the way you were doing it is correct but useless. Because magnification, so focal length of an imaging lens is essentially inverse of field of view in a way, meaning longer focal length means narrower field of view. Shorter focal length means a wider field of view. But when we start talking about afocal telescopes, and everything we've talked about right now sort of falls under a general type of afocal telescopes, right? And that's it's an important phrase. Afocal means that it is designed to be consumed by human eye, meaning it's a DVO, direct view optic. And the way it spits out the light out of the backhand is different for a direct view optics versus for an imaging optic like a camera lens, for example. So when we talk about DVOs, direct view optics, or afocal telescopes, it's really useful to try to define everything in a what's a good way of saying this? In terms of external parameters, right? Try to think of it as close to a black box as you can, right? So that we don't spend too much time. We will later here, but in terms of understanding what these things really mean, you want to think about it in terms of what's outside the black box, right? In technical terms, we talk about input referred parameters and output referred parameters, right? Output being just outside of things. So this is how you want to think about it. Mind if I switch to the whiteboard for a moment?
No, by all means.
I've come sort of prepared, maybe. So if you have your rifle scope, and I'll draw a very crude rifle scope. I'm not an artist. So this is objective, light's going in, light's going out, all right? Your eye is somewhere here. Your eye gets some sort of a field of view out of the eyepiece. The scope gets some sort of field of view from whatever it's looking at, right? You with me so far?
Got it.
I'm going to erase these arrows. Okay. So what the scope sees is called field of view. What your eye sees is called apparent field of view. Okay. The simplest way to think about magnification is that the ratio of this angle to this angle is your magnification. If the field of view you're getting out of the scope is exactly the same as the field of view going in, it's a unity magnification. Okay, is this making some sort of sense?
So I'm going to ask the dummy question. So when you say if your field of view out of it is the same as field of view in it, that's effectively no magnification. So that's a 1x.
No. It's unity magnification.
Okay.
No magnification is when you're looking for a flat glass, so through a red dot sight.
Okay.
Something like that.
Following.
Right? Unity magnification is still
I had to ask that question because somebody was thinking it, including me, because I'm dumb. Okay, so red dot optics like that.
Right, so I'm going to go back to it. So that's your magnification. Now, in principle, all your business about focal length is accurate because the fields of view coming out and going in are defined by the focal lengths of all the stuff outside. Okay, but in practical terms, field of view is something you can feel, touch, and understand. While focal length that's inside, you have no idea what's happening in there, and you shouldn't need to know really, unless you're particularly curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
You with me?
Following, yeah.
Okay, so there is a very, very important factor though here, right? So think about this. Magnification is the ratio of these fields of view. If you have very narrow field of view coming in and very narrow field of view coming out, it's still unity 1. a magnification of 1. If you have wide field of view coming in and wide field of view coming out, it's also 1. Magnification has not changed, but what you see has changed dramatically. Okay? This concept's sinking in?
Yeah, so far.
And when we talk about prismatics, that's going to become very, very important. This thing, apparent field of view, is really critical for a lot of things. Okay?
Okay.
You with me? Okay. So field of view is generally defined in terms of degrees as an angle. 1 degree, 5 degree, 10 degree, and you're right, a larger field of view in terms of degrees will allow you to see a larger linear size scene, linear size object at whatever distance. Right? You can think of field of view in terms of degrees or in terms of milliradians or minutes of angle or whatever unit is more appropriate, but degrees are degrees. Okay. So the apparent field of view is really, really important because when you know how you talk about some scopes having this huge image in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we're talking about optics. When you're talking about size of anything, you're talking about angles, right? So huge image means large apparent field of view.